Looking good, Italian Job.
Feeling good, Tommy boy. How are you, my friend?
I'm glad now that you're back. I think with your absence, we lost tens of followers, but we'll surely get them back. So welcome back to the Stuff We're Trying podcast.
It is good to be back. I'll tell you what. I took a listen to what you and Van Winkle covered on the Give to Give blood drive, and encouraging men to kind of give of themselves and give abundantly and give out of their abundance. Very encouraged by it. As a matter of fact, one of the guys in my region reached out and was like, "Hey, I listened to the podcast. You're going to be at the blood drive next month." So I'm signed up. Thanks to encouragement from the podcast last week that you guys did, and for the guy locally who gave me that emotional head clock, because I was waiting until the last minute. I was going to sign up last minute, as we do with F3, but I'm locked and loaded, and I'll be joining you guys, draining the vein.
That's awesome. At the end of the day, it's not when you sign up, it's that you sign up. So yeah, ours is this weekend. T-claps to F3 Cheddar out of Greensboro for spearheading it. He's got a great location for us. We've got a guy bringing his smoker out. I think with the stuff that he pulls off of that grill grate, by the time we're done, our blood might have to be squeezed out versus just free flowing, but it'll still be good. So I'm looking forward to it. I think I mentioned it last week. It's the first way that I stepped into the third F of service when I joined F3 Greensboro was a Father's Day blood drive, and haven't missed one. I don't plan to. So I'm excited. Well, I'm glad you're back. You went to the Magic Kingdom. I saw some great photos on the Twitter sphere. I love your comment of just simply making memories. So I hope you made a lot of great memories.
Made some great memories, and it ties in really well to our topic today, which is talking about our M's and our families, that concentrica and that focus on where it should be. I had the opportunity because, I mean, let's be honest, when you go on a vacation like that, you spend the whole time in the car or in the plane, however you get there, you spend it as a family. You sleep in the same hotel room as a family. You are at the parks together as a family. And while you're there, you're realizing that how many distractions do we have between work and home? But when you're plugged in and it's just you and your family, it helps you to level set and realize what's truly important. And so it just dovetails well into what we're talking about today. So I'm coming with some fresh ideas and coming right off the flight, and I'm ready to roll with some of the content. But we did have a good trip. It was a fun time. The mouse got his money from me, and the kids made memories. We made memories, and everybody's happy. So everybody but my bank account. But outside of that, we're all
say when you go to check your balance, you'll make the goofy noise and just be like, "Gorsh, gorsh, Mickey." That's it. That is the sound of it leaving the ATM.
That's exactly right.
Well, here's the deal. We're going to talk a little bit about the home front this week. We've talked a lot about the past 22 episodes, what happens out in the gloom, what happens when we lean into the potential of impact that we have as leaders in our community. We really want to drill down into leading right at home. So we'll make a point to tie these into some cue points here. We've got some great analogies. I know, like you said, you have some things, but fellas, here's the deal. By the end of our conversation, our hope is this for today's episode, that you have a flight path towards leading right at home and not just alone, bringing your M along. If you want to talk F3, how to build your SLT with your M, and how to follow through the Q source with your children as it applies. So not a real topic or title per se, but we have 3 questions that we want to drill down, that we want you guys to ask yourselves, ask your families. And at the end of it all, we hope you have a family mission. We hope you have a family rally cry, and we hope you have a way to live that out. Call it 8 block, call it mission action plan, call it what you want, but live it out. So the first question here I'll throw at you just to kind of riff on is, Italian Job, what makes your family unique?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think we should all ask ourselves. For me personally, what makes our family unique is we strive to have dinner together every single night, which is a little bit easier now that my kids are young. Let's be honest. I have a preschooler and an elementary school age child. So it's not like they have anywhere else to be, but you have teenagers, and that can be a challenge with all the events going on with the kids, sporting events and after school activities and that sort of thing. But that's kind of what makes my family unique, is not only with our immediate family, but we also get together on the weekends with my in-laws and have a meal together. And it's pretty unique that that's the case, but everybody has something that makes their family unique. And I'm going to toss it back to you. Give me some ideas of things that make your family unique, or things that you've seen from other folks that makes their family unique, something that the guys can think about.
Yeah, it's kind of borrowed from yours, but it's also a little bit different. I grew up and my lunch was made for me every day. It was nothing fancy. I took my lunch in a brown paper bag, just like everybody else, or a GI Joe lunchbox. And but mom always made my lunch, and it was a special occasion to buy school lunch, which probably nowadays translates into me realizing my mom just wasn't up for the task that day, and put a couple of bucks in my Zips shoes pocket. But that being said, is when we had our kids, it's fun for me. I dig it. We like making their lunches. We have a sick sense of humor, and we always like dropping inappropriate notes or funny things in there to give the kids a rise. But that's kind of one of our things, is to take a moment and lean into each other every day. And it may just be a extra 3-second hug at the end of the night. Little things like that have really reminded me of what our family is. Because the point is that if we don't know what makes our families different from others, do we really have a basis for making decisions? And will we just try to do the same in order to please all people, or try to fit in? You think about the pressure that we see and our kids see on social media, for example, and we're comparing, our behind the scenes footage to everybody else's highlight reels. The same thing happens. Oh my gosh, I went to practice and apparently we're supposed to have our kids signed up for this school, or be playing this many instruments, or playing this many sports, and we haven't done that. We need to catch up. But if that's not something that is truly important to your family, you're only doing it to fit in with other families versus developing what your dynamic is.
And I'll tell you, Tommy Boy, you mentioned that highlight reel, and everyone's got mess in the background. Every Thanksgiving dinner image of the perfect meal doesn't show the dirty dishes in the kitchen. I will tell you, the pictures you saw on social media from Disney, I guarantee you those were the ones that were hand selected, because there were plenty of pictures where the kids, it was hot and they were tired, and the faces were not the Disney portrait faces, because we were tired. So the ones you saw were the highlight reel for sure. And we made sure of that. That's what we do as society, is show how things look on the brightest day, on the best times. We don't tend to put out there the dark days and the times that the struggles are real.
Until it's almost too late, right? When somebody finally is the breaking point and they just say, I need help. I don't know how to blank. Can you help me? And those responses are infinitesimally larger than the responses, which is usually just a thumbs up to a picture posted of a great moment. So just don't get caught up in that mess, because that's what everybody else does. And the F3 man is a new man. So the beauty of this is when you drill down on what makes your family unique, then we're getting into the Q source points of VAPE, right? Visualize, articulate, persuade. And I'm drawing a complete blank.
Exhortation.
Execute. I was about to say enact. I was like, where's enact coming from? Exhortation. Thank you. Hey, Dredd, if you're listening, Cobain's brother. And so you can't do any of those things if you don't know what makes you fundamentally unique. So again, what makes your family unique? And then we get into what is your family's top priority or rally cry right now. And that's a great moment to pause and really think about what are we needing to focus on? We've complained about this, or this seems to hang us up constantly. Why is that? And how do we work through it so that it doesn't become a problem again? Or if it does, we recognize it before it becomes a problem. I don't think there is no one answer to this, right? You and I could philosophize all day on what that could be, but we would be wrong for every single individual who listens to this.
And it's important to note that rally cry changes based on the season and what's going on. Prior to going on this trip, what was our rally cry? I mean, it's as simple as let's get all of our stuff together and make sure we're ready for this trip. During the trip, the realization I had was the rally cry was, I am distracted. And when you're at Disney, you don't have time to be distracted because you're too busy walking from ride to ride, or you're planning for the next day. But I didn't have my phone out where I was checking Twitter and Slack and Facebook and whatever else, work emails. I did see a lot of distracted dads, disengaged dads. And it's really simple to find those guys because they're either glued to the bench or glued to their phone. And
Yep.
the kids are pulling, daddy, let's go play. I want to ride. I want to do this. I want to do that. And the dad who's just sitting there and
Yeah.
just, I've had enough. And I'm thinking, I don't want to be that dad, but here's a tidbit of information. We've all been that dad. And if you haven't been that dad, you will be that dad. And like you said, you have to be cognizant when you have shifted your focus away from the core, the SLT of your household, your M, your children, and your focus has then turned into distractions or idleness or work or whatever that thing is. We have to have a rallying cry to say, there's an issue and how are we going to address it? And for me, that was a realization that I am far too plugged in to things that really don't have much importance. The social media aspects.
Yeah, it's one of those things where if you can't define what is truly important, then everything becomes important and then nothing gets done. And that's certainly a work acumen. And we'll get into that towards the end of our conversation. And we've all been there where we feel so stressed. And all it takes is a moment of clarity for somebody on the outside to say, well, let's write down the 3 most important things right now. And that perspective changes everything. So we're talking about getting mission critical, right? What is critical to the mission of our family? Let's define it. Let's move through it and repair it or fix it or end it and then move on to the next thing. And that's a different rhythm than a lot of folks in our home country of America are used to. We're used to everything being important and put me on the board for everything and I'll sign up so my LinkedIn profile looks beefy, but I'm not really doing anything because I'm torn. While I'm on one committee meeting, I'm also looking on my phone, reading through the minutes from the last committee meeting. So yeah, it's critical to define what's mission critical. Question number 3. How do we as a family talk about and use the answers to these questions? So this is really getting into, if you don't answer or have an answer for the first 2 and address them, whether it's whatever your rhythm is, if it's daily, if it's weekly, and then also I would say monthly. It needs to be, constant decision making, not to the point where it's stressing, but to the point where you realize that you're growing, you're developing as a family, you're further living out that original question of what is our family mission. And if you don't have that regular agreed upon check-in, you're not going to yield any benefits to what you're even trying to accomplish, even if you know what that is.
Yeah. Yeah. There are certain things that I've decided that it's important to teach my kids. And you mentioned kind of a rallying cry and asking these questions. And some of the things I want to teach my kids, most importantly, is be kind, because there's not enough kindness in the world. Be kind. Tip well. Return your shopping cart. Hold a door open for a stranger. Don't drive slow in the passing lane. Use your darn turn signals. Do your best. Stand up for others. Live third. Give your time, talents, and treasures, and do the right thing. And if my kids catch any of that, and I like to say, messages are caught and not taught.
I love that.
We often think, I'm going to say the things and the kids are going to listen and regurgitate the things, but really our kids notice how we act. You mentioned it last week in the podcast on the blood drive, on the blood drive, freed to bleed, the fact that our kids will notice these things, that these guys, my dad's friends, are giving of something that they'll never really see the fruits of their labor. They're never going to meet the person who gets the blood that they donated, but they're doing it because it's the right thing to do. That's catching it. They're catching it from seeing mom and dad doing the right things.
And that's the power also of bringing out a shorty or your 2.0 to a workout. Because ideally they've heard a lot of these messages come out of the mouths of their mom and dad. But for whatever reason, it's when dad's friend Wojo says, hey, I saw you trying hard. keep at what you're doing, eventually the push-up won't be as hard. And it just clicks. Dad, I'm going to do 50 push-ups when he gets home from the workout. You're like, I've been saying that all along, bro. But it does. It's not taught, it's caught. So guys might be scratching their head right now thinking, I mean, these are all well and good questions, but what's the point of this conversation? So here's the deal. Anybody who is doing the 8 block knows that one of the most impactful when it comes to our family squares outside of developing that concentrica is the date night square. How are you going to date your wife, date your kids? And so here's the idea. This isn't meant for you to be done solo, specifically if you have a family. So the way that you do this is pretty straightforward, is finding time for a date night with the M. This is a no shorties allowed conversation. Doesn't mean you have to leave the house. Certainly don't want to go to some crazy loud spot, but find a great date night location. It could just be a ruck around the park, which would be awesome. You're developing and working with your SLT in this instance, and you're basically developing together, rather, what makes our family unique. So questions that you could ask one another are, what do we believe in as a family? What is truly important to us? What do you love about me? What made you fall in love with me? Right. Versus the other guys that night at the event. These are questions that help you drill down that what makes your relationship, and therefore the family that you've created or are creating, unique and special, and something that needs to be fought for. Because again, what's the quote from Hamilton? If you fight forever, or if you fight for nothing, then what will you fall for?
If you stand for nothing, what will you fall for?
Thank you. Don't tell my kids I couldn't quote that, because that's a lot of push-ups I have to make up for. But seriously, fellas, schedule a date night with the M. Let her know what this is about. Don't spring it on her. Don't do the bonehead dad move that I would do, or husband move. Let her know that you want to take her out, but that also you want to talk about your past lives together, what you love about each other, and what makes our family special. Odds are she'll be over the moon and probably thinking it's about damn time.
So my wife and I just celebrated our 13th anniversary last week, or the week before last. Thank you, brother. And I asked her where she wanted to go to dinner, which, that can be problematic. It turns into a 3-day ordeal of, I don't know. What do you think? I don't know what you think. Yeah. My wife said, I'd like to go to that Mexican restaurant we used to go to when we just got married, an order by number Mexican restaurant. I thought my wife was going to say an expensive place. She wanted to go to the taco place. And when we were young and before the kids, our date night was, we would go to the Mexican restaurant, and then we'd go to like TJ Maxx and Marshall's and just walk around. So now we're 13 years older with 2 kids and a bigger mortgage than we had at the time. We've things have grown, all in, things have grown, including our waistlines, including the price of tacos, by the way. Those went up. It was not Taco Tuesday, 50-cent taco night. It was legit expense. But it was one of those things that it was just nice to level set and go back to how things used to be. And one of the questions that my wife asked me on our date night was, how do you think you've changed since we met? And I had to really think about that and what things have changed for the better. And my wife specifically said, F3 changed you in a better way. And guys, that right there, my wife says this frequently. We'll go for a walk and I'll say, car back. She'll say, don't F3 me. Don't F3 me. But this was unprompted. My wife said, F3 changed you and made you better, made you a better dad and husband. So
outstanding.
You guys are doing something right out there, nation. You're doing great things. And if I can have one moment of where I am a good dad because I'm surrounded by good dads, it was well worth all the Merkins and man makers and burpees that got me to that point.
Yeah, no, that's outstanding. So write these things down. Make sure you write them down. Keep record of them. If nothing else, you'll know the kind of gifts that your wife would love to receive from you from time to time. But then it's time to bring in the shorties, bring in your 2.0s. Let them know what you've developed as your family mission. Hey, kids, your mom and I talked. We built a conversation around some questions. We answered them. We want to share them with you. And then we have a question for you. And that's when you ask your full team, how are we going to choose to live out these things? If this is what makes our family special, maybe it's empathy, maybe it's service above self, it's hard work, it's physical activity, whatever is put out there between the two of you, give out to the full family and say, how are we going to live out our mission? And that's a really great family. You talked about tacos, man, cover the table with tacos and have that discussion with the family. And again, write it down. If you've got a kid who wants to practice his handwriting, or a kid that needs to practice his handwriting, give him the dry erase. Let him be the scribe for the meeting. Don't call it a meeting, because then they'll check right out. But put the phones away, put them in a shoebox, put the shoebox in the closet, get pencil and paper, or a dry erase and a dry erase marker, and let the kids be as involved as you can to develop how we are going to live out our family's mission. You want to talk about a family memory night and making memories with the family. That's a phenomenal way to do it. Italian Job, you talked about earlier on, you hit on the rally cry, because this is something else you want to develop from this family time together. Share a little bit about what the rally cry is and how it could change.
Yeah, I mean, a rally cry can be something that's momentary, something that we need to focus on as a family right now for what's upcoming, or it can be long term. You mentioned it before, a rally cry of, we want our family to be the one that volunteers at the local insert here, whatever that is. We want our family to be known as the ones, when someone is sick in the hospital, that we bring a meal. These are rally cries, but they could also be something as simple as Junior is really struggling with his math, or your son or daughter is really struggling with body image, or whatever it is. What are we going to do as a family to support whatever is going on in the family? So your rally cry can change, and it should change. But you have to have a goal in mind. You have to have waypoints to get to the end point. If you just say, so-and-so is really struggling right now, don't write it down and don't follow up on it, nothing's going to happen. So those rally cries are important to write down and then check in on them and stay on top of it. And you say it quite frequently. If it's not written down, then if it's not worth tracking, how do you say it, TV? What's the way?
Many different ways, but yeah, if it's meaningful, it's measurable, right?
There you
go. Yeah. To give a real life example, when my wife decided that she wanted to go back and get her degree in culinary arts and food management and all these great things, because for a while there, it still is, she's working hard on her catering business. Part of that was to go back and finish up her degree. And so she signed up for all these online courses, and our family's rallying cry for the time she started until the time she wrapped up school was, whatever we can do to make this experience seamless for mom, and remove any obstacle, that's what we're going to do. So for me, I took over dinner so that mom could come home. She could plug into the computer, get her classes done. Kids took advantage of setting that routine for themselves. Let's get out of the way. We'll go to our rooms, or we'll sit at the table, do our homework. Whatever we could do, that was our rally cry. When she graduated, our rally cry shifted. Then we turned focus on a project we were working on for my little backyard business. And when that was done, we looked at the kids. Hey, what are you working on? Daughter wanted to get into some elite volleyball programs. So I can build a plyo box and help you out with your jumping. Mom can work with you on your nutrition and bringing you out to FIA. Your brother could just tell you how much he loves you, even though he feels like that's gross. But whatever it is, right? That's your rally cry. And when you solve that problem, you move on. In the world of F3, you're removing obstacles or serving as a guardrail for anybody in your family who is trying to or needs your help to accelerate. And then lastly, the last step I would say is building that accountability plan. This is really going back to extortion. See, I did it again. I'm just going to stop saying. I'm just going to stop trying to say exhortation. This is when you extort your family because you wrote everything down, and you could bribe them to get whatever you need. Exhortation. And so, look, I don't want to talk too much about this because every family is different, as we just talked about. So it might be a family-wide 8 block. It might be something that you might look at first and say, well, this is a chore chart. Well, look, if the tool worked, or as Dredd would say, leadership isn't revolutionary, it's evolutionary. Anybody who's been through a grill ruck has heard that multiple times. So
Yes.
evolve what needs to evolve so that your family can tap in. If you need to evolve the Q source, or I'm sorry, the 8 block, evolve it and make it work for you. If you need to evolve the old chore chart, there's nothing wrong with that. Like I said, it's already worked once. But how will you all check in and make sure that you're living out the mission, that you're honoring the rally cry, working towards a solution? Obviously, timetables work really well with that. And then ultimately, going back to the repeat phase. Okay, let's check back in. What's next? What needs to change? What's worked? Look, this is like driving a car. Getting into and out of first gear is the hardest part. But once you get moving forward and you get moving forward together optimally, the repeat process is easy or easier. And if it's not improving, then we're doing something wrong. But I love this program, or this concept rather. And truth be told, it comes from a book called 3 Questions for the Frantic Family. This was something years ago. Patrick Leone. I'm sure a lot of guys out there are hearing that name and thinking, oh yeah, I've read some of his books. He has a lot of business. The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team is the first introduction I had to him. And they're these fictitious, easy to read books where he makes up a problem at a pretend company. He's made a ton of cash off of these books, but the one that he gets asked about the most is his least successful commercially, and that's the 3 Questions for a Frantic Family. I'm not going to bore you because y'all are big boys, and you can go and look this up on Amazon if you're interested. I would guide you to do a Google search for Art of Manliness, 3 Questions Frantic. And you'll find a very digestible, great for a solo ruck rendition of this whole book. So do your own homework there, or what do they say now online? Do your own research. But let's bypass that for now because we can just include that in the notes. And IJ, why don't you toss out the challenge worth trying for the week?
Yeah, it's real simple. Find a time to date your wife, guys. You remember when you were dating your wife and how you would bend over backwards to do things for her. You remember when it was not uncommon to pick up flowers or you were pursuing your wife. At one point, you were pursuing your wife. And it seems that the longer you're together, a lot of times that pursuit falls off and it turns into maintenance. And you're no longer growing together or accelerating. You are now stagnant. So it's a simple one, guys. And I'm not saying go to the fanciest restaurant in town. I'm just saying carve out time to spend time with your wife on a monthly basis. Once a month, at least, date your wife. I'm going to share something I wrote about wives a long time ago. We call our wives the M because she's the most important relationship we have. That relationship is transformational. Before marriage, it was me and her. Once married, we became an us. It's no longer solely about you. You are to serve your wife. You are to pursue joy with her, even when things are tough. It's not a game. There's no scoreboard. There are no winners and losers, and no one gets a participation trophy. Society tells us that marriage is 50-50, but let me assure you that's a farce. There are times it's 80-20. There are times it's 20-80. As John Michael Montgomery once said, life's a dance. You learn as you go. Sometimes you lead, sometimes you follow. Marriage isn't about keeping a tally who's done what. It isn't Chuck E. Cheese. You can't trade in your empty dishwasher tickets for a guy's weekend. It's not how it works. You empty the dishwasher so she doesn't have to. You set the example for your children so they know how to be a good husband one day or what to look for in a future husband. They are watching, so make your actions count. But remember, if your focus becomes more about the fitness and fellowship with your friends and less about loving your wife, your concentrica is out of alignment. Keep each other accountable and pursue your wife. Let her know she matters. Don't seek relationship maintenance. Instead, keep accelerating. Don't meet in the middle. Go the distance and serve her. So the challenge we're trying, go pursue your wife. Have a date with your wife, regardless of if it costs you nothing, if it's a walk in the park, just you and your wife together, like you used to do. That's the challenge we're trying this week.
I dig it. Anybody who has stepped up and been free to lead in their region on an SLT, the same principles work and should work at home. but it takes initiative. So take the initiative, invite her out, ask her the questions that matter, find out what makes your family, share it with the kids so they know. Just like in a Concentrica, if the people on that list don't know that they're on that list, you might as well not even have them on the list. So make sure that they know that they matter that much to you and why they matter, and develop that plan. We're going to put a few links in the block again in the descriptor. If you guys have any questions, as always, we're at F3SWT on Twitter. We are at stuffworthtrying.com. You got Tommy Boy at F3Nation.com, Italian Job at F3Nation.com. We've seen a ton of great questions coming through the Slack channels, which then turns into really great conversation. So don't hesitate. If you have a question or if you have filled a need, tell us how you did it so that we can share it with the rest of the region and then with the rest of the F3 Nation. Italian Job, always glad to have you back. Don't ever leave me again. I was scared. Thank God for Rip Van Winkle. But that being said, dominate the week, Ben, and I can't wait to see you next week.
It was an honor and a privilege as always, brother, and look forward to talking to you again soon.
All right. Be good.
Or be good at it.